A wealthy individual disguised as a commoner visited a luxury car dealership. Observe how the staff treated him. It was a bright morning in São Paulo when the glass doors of Elite Motors, a prestigious three-story building with a glass and steel facade that mirrored the sunlight, slid open completely. Inside, the environment exuded opulence and sophistication, with the most expensive and exclusive cars displayed in a marble-floored showroom, illuminated by LED lights that highlighted every curve and angle of their bodies. The scent of new leather and vanilla air freshener filled the space, creating an air of exclusivity. The salespeople, dressed in bespoke suits and polished shoes, moved through the showroom with an air of superiority, ready to attend to the affluent clients frequenting the place. Among them were Rodrigo Valverde and Alexandra Montero, known for being the top salespeople at the dealership. At the reception desk, a young woman about 25 with brown hair styled in an elegant bun and expressive green eyes, named Sofia Nogueira, organized some papers. Although new to the job, she had already earned her colleagues' respect for her efficiency and friendly demeanor with customers. Suddenly, the doors opened, and a middle-aged man entered, dressed in a worn shirt, jeans, and scuffed shoes. His grey hair was unkempt, and he sported several days' worth of stubble. Despite his shabby appearance, his blue eyes held an intense focus. Rodrigo and Alexandra exchanged looks of disdain upon seeing the newcomer. The man began to stroll through the showroom, showing interest in the cars. When he approached a gleaming red sports car, Rodrigo couldn't hold back. "Excuse me, sir," he said with a condescending tone. "May I assist you with anything?" The man turned and smiled pleasantly. "I'm here to buy a car," he replied. Alexandra joined the conversation, chuckling lightly. "Are you sure you're in the right place? Our cars are quite exclusive." The man seemed unfazed by the comment. "I'm sure. Actually, I'd like to see the most expensive model you have." Rodrigo and Alexandra exchanged another look, this time of disbelief mixed with contempt. "Sir," Rodrigo said with feigned patience, "perhaps it would be better if you looked elsewhere. Our cars start in the six-figure range." "I understand," the man replied calmly, "but I insist on seeing your best model." Losing his patience, Alexandra retorted, "It's clear you can't afford anything we have here. We suggest you leave before we have to call security." The man looked at both salespeople with an unreadable expression, then, without saying another word, turned and headed towards the exit. But before reaching the door, he stopped in front of the reception desk. Sofia, who had watched the scene with disapproval, gave a warm smile. The man, Gabriel Vega, replied with a smile, "Yes, I'd actually like to speak with the manager if possible." Sofia responded, "I'm sorry, but the manager is currently in a meeting. However, I can take down your name and number and ensure he contacts you as soon as possible." "I would appreciate that," Gabriel said. "My name is Gabriel Vega. Here is my card." Sofia took the card and entered the details into the computer. "Perfect, Mr. Vega. I will make sure the manager receives your message." "Thank you, miss." Gabriel paused, reading Sofia's name tag. "You've been very kind." With one last smile, Gabriel Vega left the dealership, leaving behind a group of salespeople satisfied with having protected their exclusive space, and a receptionist intrigued by the mysterious visitor. Little did they know that this seemingly insignificant encounter was about to trigger a series of events that would change their lives forever. Meanwhile, in his luxurious office on the top floor of a skyscraper across town, a sharply dressed man looked out the window with a mysterious smile on his face. It was Carlos Montauban, the owner of the factory that produced the luxury cars sold at Elite Motors. He had just hung up the phone after a conversation with his old friend Gabriel Vega. "This is going to be interesting," he murmured to himself before returning to his desk to plan his next move. 3 days had passed since Gabriel Vega's visit to Elite Motors, and life at the dealership had returned to its usual routine. Rodrigo and Alexandre were boasting about their latest sales, while Sofia continued to assist customers with her characteristic friendliness. It was mid-morning when the dealership doors opened again, and to everyone's surprise, Gabriel Vega walked in once more. This time, however, he wore a more elegant casual suit and had a neatly trimmed beard. Nevertheless, Rodrigo and Alexandre recognized him immediately. "This can't be," Alexandre muttered under his breath. "What's he doing back here?" Rodrigo, however, saw an opportunity. "Wait," he told his colleague. "Look at how he's dressed now. Maybe we jumped to conclusions the other day. Let me handle this." With a rehearsed smile, Rodrigo approached Gabriel. "Good morning, sir. Welcome back to Elite Motors. How can we assist you today?" Gabriel looked at Rodrigo with a neutral expression. "Good morning. I'd like to speak with the manager." Rodrigo's smile faltered slightly. "I'm afraid the manager is in an important meeting at the moment, but I'm sure I can help with any questions you have about our vehicles." "I appreciate the offer," Gabriel replied, "but I insist on speaking with the manager. It's a rather urgent matter." Before Rodrigo could respond, Sofia approached. "Mr. Vega, what a pleasure to see you again," she said with a genuine smile. "I'm sorry to inform you that the manager is still in a meeting," Sofia responded. "The manager is in a series of important meetings this week. I can take a more detailed message for him." Gabriel returned her smile, saying, "Thank you, Miss Nogueira. I appreciate your help. I'll come back another time." As Gabriel headed toward the exit, Rodrigo made one last attempt. "Mr. Vega, if you're interested in any of our models, I'd be more than happy to show you our collection." Gabriel stopped and replied, "Thank you, but that won't be necessary. I'm already quite familiar with these cars." With that, Gabriel left the dealership, leaving Rodrigo confused and Sofia intrigued. Meanwhile, in the manager's office, Julio Paredes, looking pale and sweaty, listened as Ernesto Quiroga, a tall man with thin-framed glasses, delivered unsettling news. "Mr. Paredes, I'm Ernesto Quiroga from Vega Industries. I'm here to inform you that starting today, our company will stop supplying vehicles to Elite Motors." Julio, shocked, questioned, "But why? We're one of your most successful distributors with excellent sales." Ernesto replied, "The reasons are confidential and come from the top at Vega Industries." Julio begged to speak with someone from management, perhaps Mr. Montauban, but Ernesto cut him off, saying the decision was final and they would no longer receive shipments. As Ernesto left, Julio slumped in his chair, processing the blow. Back on the sales floor, Rodrigo and Alexandre debated Gabriel Vega's motives. "There's something strange about him," Alexandre said. "Why is he so insistent on seeing the manager?" Rodrigo suggested he might be an eccentric buyer or a scam artist, Alexandre countered. Sofia, overhearing, spoke up. "Have you considered he might just be a customer who deserves respect, regardless of his appearance?" Rodrigo and Alexandre looked surprised, unaccustomed to Sofia's input. Rodrigo said, "You don't understand how this business works. We know real clients." To which Alexandre added, "This guy is not a real client. He's a waste of time." Sofia was about to reply when Julio emerged from his office, his face distraught, and the employees fell silent with concern. "Everyone to the conference room now," Julio announced with a trembling voice. As the employees made their way to the conference room, a sense of unease spread through the dealership. No one knew what was happening, but everyone could feel that something significant was about to unfold. Meanwhile, miles away in Carlos Montauban's office, Gabriel Vega sat with a smile. "How was your visit, old friend?" Carlos asked. "Exactly as we expected," Gabriel replied. "I think it's time to move to the next phase of our plan." Carlos nodded, his expression a mix of resolve and what seemed almost like sadness. "So be it. It's time for Elite Motors to learn a valuable lesson." As preparations for a life-changing meeting took place at Elite Motors, the wheels of a larger plan continued to turn, leading everyone toward an unforeseen destiny. The atmosphere in the Elite Motors conference room was tense. Employees glanced at each other, confused and anxious, as they waited for the manager, Julio Paredes, to start the emergency meeting. Sofia sat in a corner, observing Rodrigo and Alexandre, whispering, likely speculating about the reason for the meeting. Finally, Julio entered the room, his usually confident and authoritative demeanor replaced by visible stress and concern. He stood in front of everyone, took a deep breath, and began speaking. "Colleagues, I have news that will significantly impact our business," he said with a trembling voice. "Moments ago, I received a visit from a representative of Vega Industries. They informed us that they have decided to cease doing business with us." A murmur of shock and confusion swept through the room. Vega Industries was Elite Motors' primary supplier, responsible for over 80% of the vehicles they sold. "What does this mean exactly?" Rodrigo asked, his usual confidence replaced by evident worry. Julio sighed and replied, "It means we will no longer receive shipments from Vega Industries. We can sell our current stock, but after that, that's impossible," interrupted Alexandra. "We're their most successful distributor in the region." "Why would they do this?" "They didn't give a clear reason," Julio answered. "They only said the decision came directly from the top of the company." Sofia, who had been listening intently, raised her hand. "Mr. Paredes, do you think this might have something to do with the man who's been coming to the dealership, Mr. Vega?" All eyes turned to her. Julio furrowed his brow. "What man are you talking about, Sofia?" Sofia explained Gabriel Vega's 2 visits, his insistence on speaking with the manager, and the treatment he received from Rodrigo and Alexandre. As she spoke, Julio's expression shifted from confusion to realization, and then to anger. "Are you telling me that a man came twice specifically asking for me and no one informed me?" he asked, his voice rising with each word. Rodrigo and Alexandre shifted uncomfortably in their seats, realizing they might have underestimated the situation. "That guy was just a bum the first time," Rodrigo defended himself. "And the second time, well, you were in meetings." "That's no excuse," Julio exploded. "Do you have any idea what you've done? Gabriel Vega could be the key to all of this." The manager ran his hand through his hair, visibly frustrated. "I need to review the security footage. I want to see exactly how this man was treated." As Julio hurried out of the room, the remaining employees began to discuss among themselves, trying to grasp the seriousness of the situation. Sofia approached Rodrigo and Alexandre. "I told you we should treat all customers with respect," she reminded them. Alexandra looked at her dismissively. "Don't start, Sofia. You don't understand how this business works." "Maybe it's time to change how it works," she replied before walking away. Meanwhile, in Carlos Montalban's office, the automotive magnate listened intently to Gabriel Vega's report. "So, how did they react on your second visit?" Carlos asked. Gabriel smiled slightly. "The salesperson who had dismissed me the first time tried to be friendly, but it was clearly insincere. However, Sofia was genuinely kind both times." Carlos nodded thoughtfully. "Interesting. And the manager never managed to see you?" Gabriel responded, "Apparently he was always in meetings. Or that's what they told the clients they didn't consider important." Carlos replied with a tone of disdain. "Well, I think it's time to move to the next phase of our plan." Gabriel looked at his friend with curiosity. "Carlos, are you sure you want to see this through? I know Elite Motors has been one of your most important distributors for years." Carlos stood and walked to the window, looking out over the city below. "Gabriel, when I started in this business, I promised myself I'd never forget where I came from and that I'd treat everyone with respect, regardless of their appearance or social status. Elite Motors has forgotten that fundamental principle." He turned to his friend, his expression a mix of determination and sadness. "Sometimes the only way to teach a lesson is with a firm hand. Elite Motors needs to learn that respect and empathy are as important as sales." Gabriel nodded, understanding his friend's stance. "What's the next step?" "We'll give them one last chance," Carlos replied. "Gabriel, you'll go back to the dealership. This time, I'll accompany you." Back at Elite Motors, Julio Paredes watched in horror as the security footage revealed the treatment Gabriel Vega had received. Every disdainful word, every contemptuous look, every gesture of disregard was captured not only on tape, but also in the manager's mind. When the footage ended, Julio sat in silence for several minutes, processing what he had just seen. Finally, he picked up the phone and dialed an extension. "Rodrigo, Alexandra, come to my office immediately," he ordered with a cold voice. As the two salespeople headed toward what would surely be a severe reprimand, Sophia remained at her post, serving customers with her usual warmth, unaware that her actions were about to shift the trajectory of her career and the company. As the day drew to a close, a sense of uncertainty loomed over Elite Motors. No one knew what the next day would bring, but everyone felt they were on the brink of a major change. As the sun set over the city, the wheels of fate continued to turn, guiding everyone toward a meeting that would change their lives forever. The next morning dawned grey and overcast, mirroring the mood at Elite Motors. The employees arrived early, each with a mix of anxiety and curiosity about what the day held. Rodrigo and Alexandra, typically the most confident and outspoken, entered in silence with grim expressions. The reprimand they had received from Julio the day before had been harsh, and they knew they were treading on thin ice. Sophia, on the other hand, arrived with her usual smile, determined to stay positive despite the palpable tension. Julio gathered everyone before opening the doors to the public. "Listen up," he began, his voice laden with seriousness. "We are in a critical situation. I need each of you to give your best today. Treat every customer as if they were the owner of Vega Industries themselves. Understood?" Everyone nodded, grasping the gravity of the situation. "Good," Julio continued. "Open the doors, and may God help us." The first few hours passed without incident. Customers came and went, some buying, others just browsing. Rodrigo and Alexandre made a concerted effort to be friendly to everyone, even those who clearly could not afford the luxury vehicles. Around noon, the doors opened once again, and two men entered. One was Gabriel Vega, dressed in a smart, casual suit, and the other was a man in his 60s with silver hair and a distinguished demeanor. Sophia recognized them immediately. "Mr. Vega, welcome back," she greeted with a warm smile. Then turning to the older man, she added, "Good morning, sir. Welcome to Elite Motors. How may I assist you?" The older man returned the smile. "Good morning, miss. My name is Carlos Montauban. I would like to speak with the manager." Upon hearing the name, Sophia felt her heart skip a beat. Carlos Montauban, the owner of Vega Industries, was standing before her. Maintaining her composure, she replied, "Of course, Mr. Montauban. Let me check if Mr. Paredes is available." As Sophia hurried to Julio's office, Rodrigo and Alexandre, who had been watching from a distance, exchanged looks of shock and fear. "That's him," Alexandre whispered. "Yes," Rodrigo confirmed, his voice barely audible. "We're in trouble." Julio Paredes shot out of his office like a bullet upon hearing who was in the showroom. With his heart racing rapidly, Julio approached the two men. "Mr. Montauban, Mr. Vega," he greeted, striving to remain composed. "It's an honor to have you here. Please come to my office." As the three men made their way to the office, Julio signaled for Sophia to join them. Once inside, and with the door shut, the silence became nearly tangible. Carlos Montauban was the first to speak. "Mr. Paredes, I assume you understand why we are here." Julio nodded, his face ashen. "Mr. Montauban, I assure you that whatever has occurred, we can resolve it. Elite Motors has been a loyal partner for years." Carlos raised a hand to interrupt. "Mr. Paredes, loyalty is important, but even more crucial is how we treat people. My friend Gabriel here witnessed firsthand how your dealership treats customers who don't seem suitable." Gabriel spoke up. "I must say, Mr. Paredes, I am disappointed. I came here twice asking to speak with you, and on both occasions I was treated with disdain by your sales staff." Julio slumped into his chair, defeated. I know, and I can't express how sorry I am. I watched the footage. Footage? Carlos arched an eyebrow. Yes, Julio replied. We have security cameras throughout the dealership. After learning of the incident, I reviewed the footage, and it was disheartening to see how my staff treated Mr. Vega. Carlos and Gabriel exchanged a glance. This was something they hadn't anticipated. Mr. Paredes, Carlos said, his tone slightly softer. Could we view this footage during the next hour? The four of them watched the interactions between Gabriel and the Elite Motors staff. Carlos observed how Rodrigo and Alexandre treated Gabriel dismissively, but he also noted Sofia's consistent courtesy. After the footage ended, Carlos turned to Sofia. Miss Nogueira, is it? Sofia nodded nervously. Yes, sir. I must commend you, Carlos continued. Your treatment of Mr. Vega was exemplary on both occasions. It is refreshing to see someone who understands the importance of respect and empathy in business. Sofia blushed at the compliment. Thank you, Mr. Montauban. I just do my job. Carlos smiled. And you do it exceptionally well. He then turned to Julio. Mr. Paredes, I think we have much to discuss regarding the future of our business relationship. Julio braced for the worst, but Carlos's next words surprised him. I was on the verge of severing all ties with Elite Motors, Carlos said. But after viewing these recordings and meeting Miss Nogueira, I believe there might still be hope for your dealership. Gabriel interjected, Are you sure after everything we've seen? Carlos nodded. I am certain, old friend. I believe that with the right changes, Elite Motors could become a model of customer service excellence. He turned to Julio. Mr. Paredes, I am willing to give your dealership one last chance. Elite Motors, but with conditions, Carlos began. Julio, relieved yet cautious, asked, What conditions, Mr. Montauban? Carlos replied, First, I want you to implement a customer service training program for all your employees. Second, the two salespeople who mistreated Mr. Vega must be appropriately disciplined. And third, he paused, looking at Sofia, I want Miss Nogueira to lead this training program and be promoted to a position where she can have a greater influence on the company culture. Sofia's eyes widened in surprise, while Julio nodded vigorously. Of course, Mr. Montauban, I will do as you instruct. Carlos smiled. Excellent. Gabriel and I will be closely monitoring Elite Motors' progress in the coming months. Don't let us down. As Carlos and Gabriel prepared to leave, Sofia gathered her courage to speak. Mr. Montauban, Mr. Vega, thank you for this opportunity. I promise not to disappoint you. Gabriel gave her a warm smile. I'm sure you won't, Miss Nogueira. You have a natural talent for this. When the two men left, Julio sank into his chair, letting out a long sigh of relief. He then looked at Sofia with a mix of gratitude and respect. Well, Miss Nogueira, it looks like we have a lot of work ahead. Are you ready for the challenge? Sofia nodded, a determined smile on her face. More than ready, Mr. Paredes. I believe this is the beginning of something great for Elite Motors. As the news spread throughout the dealership, causing a mix of shock, relief, and anticipation among the staff, no one could foresee how profoundly that day would change, not only Elite Motors, but also the lives of everyone involved. The storm had passed, but its ripples were just beginning to spread. In the weeks following Carlos Montauban and Gabriel Vega's visit, Elite Motors underwent a whirlwind of activity. The dealership embarked on a radical transformation led by the newly promoted Sofia Nogueira. The first major change was the disciplining of Rodrigo and Alexandre. Following Montauban's instructions, Julio Paredes suspended them without pay for 2 weeks and placed them on a 6-month probation. Additionally, they were informed they would be the first to undergo the new customer service training program. Sofia, meanwhile, threw herself into her new role with enthusiasm and determination, spending long hours researching best practices in customer service, designing training modules, and preparing to lead the cultural shift at Elite Motors. One morning, while Sofia was working in her new office, a small cubicle that had previously served as storage, Julio entered with a worried expression. "Sophia," he began, "I need your opinion on something." Sophia looked up from her computer. "Of course, Mr. Paredes. What's going on?" Julio sat down in front of her, sighing deeply. "It's about Rodrigo and Alexandre. His suspension period ends tomorrow, and frankly, I'm not sure if we should let him come back," Julio said. Sophia frowned, deep in thought. "I understand your concern, Mr. Paredes, but I believe firing them would be a mistake." "Why do you say that?" Julio asked, surprised. "Well," Sophia explained, "if we fire them, we're sending the message that we don't believe in people's ability to change and improve, which is the opposite of what we're trying to achieve with our new approach." Julio nodded slowly, considering her words. "Additionally," Sophia continued, "I believe Rodrigo and Alexandre could become our greatest successes if we manage to change their attitude. Imagine the impact on the rest of the team if the former bad apples turn into customer service models." A faint smile appeared on Julio's face. "You're right, Sophia. As always. Fine, we'll give them another chance, but they will be under your direct supervision during the training program." Sophia nodded, accepting the challenge. "I won't let you down, Mr. Paredes." The next day, Rodrigo and Alexandre returned to Elite Motors. The atmosphere was tense as they walked in, their colleagues observing them with a mix of curiosity and apprehension. Sophia greeted them at the entrance. "Good morning, Rodrigo, Alexandre," she said with a professional smile. "Welcome back. Please follow me to the conference room." Once inside, Sophia outlined the new training program and the expectations she had for them. To her surprise, both men listened attentively, lacking the arrogant attitude they once displayed. "Miss Noguera," Rodrigo said when Sophia finished, "we know that Alexandre and I were difficult in the past, but we want you to know we're committed to changing." Alexandre nodded, adding, "These 2 weeks gave us a lot of time to reflect. We realized that our behavior was not only unprofessional, but also jeopardized everyone's future at Elite Motors." Sophia studied their faces for signs of insincerity, but saw only genuine remorse. "I appreciate your honesty," she replied. "This won't be an easy process, but if you are truly committed, I believe we can achieve great things together." As weeks passed, the transformation at Elite Motors became increasingly evident. Sophia's training program was bearing fruit, and employees began adopting a more empathetic and respectful approach with all clients. Rodrigo and Alexandre, to everyone's surprise, became the most dedicated learners. Their natural competitiveness drove them to excel in the new skills they were acquiring. One day, as Sophia watched Rodrigo interact with a modest-looking customer, she couldn't help but smile. The salesman was showing the same enthusiasm and respect he would have for a wealthy executive. "Impressive, isn't it?" a voice said behind her. Sophia turned to see Gabriel Vega, who had entered the dealership unnoticed. Sophia noticed Mr. Vega's arrival and greeted him, surprised as she hadn't expected him today. Gabriel smiled. "Carlos and I have been closely monitoring Elite Motors' progress. I must say, Miss Noguera, we're very impressed with the changes you've implemented." Sophia blushed at the compliment. "Thank you, Mr. Vega. Everyone has been working very hard. It's evident," she responded. Gabriel continued. "In fact, Carlos is considering using Elite Motors as a model to implement similar changes at other dealerships." Sophia's eyes lit up at the news. "That would be wonderful, Mr. Vega. I truly believe this approach is not only morally right, but also good for business." Gabriel nodded, his gaze fixed on Sophia with admiration and something else she couldn't quite place. "I agree. Speaking of business, would you like to have dinner with me tonight to discuss some ideas on how we could expand this program?" Sophia was taken aback by the invitation, but found herself nodding before she could think twice. "I would love to, Mr. Vega." Gabriel smiled. "Excellent. And please, call me Gabriel." As Gabriel said his goodbyes and left the dealership, Sophia felt a mix of excitement and nervousness, not only about the opportunity to discuss the program's expansion, but also about spending time alone with Gabriel Vega. What Sophia didn't know was that this dinner would mark the beginning of a new chapter in her life, bringing both opportunities and challenges she had never imagined. Meanwhile, in his office, Julio Paredes reviewed the latest sales reports with a satisfied smile. The numbers were clear, the new approach was working. Sales had increased, customer reviews were more positive, and the atmosphere at the dealership was better than ever. Yet, a small part of him couldn't shake a twinge of worry. If Vega Industries decided to have Sophia implement the program at other dealerships, could Elite Motors maintain this success without her? Julio shook off these negative thoughts, focusing on the present success and supporting Sophia in every way he could. The future, with all its challenges and opportunities, would come in due time. As the sun set on another successful day at Elite Motors, no one could foresee the twists and turns fate had in store for them in the days to come. That night, as Sophia arrived at the restaurant where she had arranged to meet Gabriel Vega, she found it elegant yet cozy, with soft lighting and the gentle murmur of conversations in the background. Gabriel was already there, waiting at a reserved table, and stood to greet her with a warm smile. "I'm glad you could make it. Thank you for coming," Gabriel said. Sophia, feeling a bit nervous yet excited, replied, "Thank you for the invitation." Once seated and with their orders placed, the evening unfolded with the promise of new beginnings. Gabriel dove straight into the topic. "Sophia, I've discussed the success of the program you implemented at Elite Motors with Carlos. We're very impressed and believe it could have an even greater impact if expanded." Sophia nodded, intrigued. "What do you have in mind?" Gabriel continued, "We want to roll out your training program across all our dealerships nationwide. We'd like you to lead this effort." Sophia nearly choked on her water. "But how?" Gabriel smiled at her surprise. "You would be responsible for developing a standardized training program based on what you've done at Elite Motors. You'd travel across the country, training managers and key staff at each dealership. Essentially, you'd be our customer service ambassador." Sophia's mind spun. It was an incredible opportunity she could barely have dreamed of a few weeks ago, but also meant leaving Elite Motors, the place where it all started. "It's a very generous offer," she finally said, "but I need time to think. Elite Motors has been my home and I'm not sure I can leave it just like that." Gabriel nodded understandingly. "Take the time you need, Sophia. Carlos and I are also discussing the possibility of buying Elite Motors," he revealed. "If that happens, you could keep your base there while traveling to implement the program at other dealerships." This revelation left Sophia speechless. It was a lot to process. The rest of the evening mixed business discussions with personal conversation. Sophia found herself enjoying Gabriel's company more than she expected, seeing a warmth behind his successful businessman facade. As the night ended and Gabriel escorted her to the car, Sophia felt a swirl of emotions, excitement for the opportunities ahead, concern about the changes, and a growing attraction to Gabriel she couldn't ignore. "Thank you for tonight, Gabriel," Sophia said as they reached the car. "You've given me a lot to think about." Gabriel smiled, his eyes sparkling in the soft parking lot light. "It was my pleasure, Sophia. I look forward to your decision and hope we can do this again, regardless of your professional choice." Sophia felt a shiver at his words. "I would like that," she replied with a shy smile as she drove home. She couldn't stop thinking about the job offer, the potential purchase of Elite Motors, and her emerging feelings for Gabriel. She knew she had crucial decisions to make, decisions that could change the course of her life. The next day at Elite Motors, Sophia found herself distracted, her mind still spinning from the previous night's events. She was so lost in thought that she didn't notice Rodrigo approaching. "Sophia, is everything okay?" Rodrigo asked, pulling her from her reverie. Sophia blinked, returning to the present. "Oh, Rodrigo, yes, I'm fine." Sophia was deep in thought when Rodrigo approached her. "You look like you have a lot on your mind," he remarked with concern. "If you want to talk about it, I'm here for you. I know I haven't always been the most pleasant person, but you've done so much for us. If there's anything I can do to help, just let me know." Sophia was taken aback by his offer. It was a testament to how much things had changed at Elite Motors. "Thank you, Rodrigo. I truly appreciate it. It's just that I might have a chance to do something bigger, but it would mean leaving Elite Motors, at least partially." Rodrigo nodded in understanding. "I get it. It's a tough decision, but if anyone deserves such an opportunity, it's you. You've transformed this place and all of us. Maybe it's time to take that change to a larger scale." Rodrigo's words touched Sophia deeply. "Thanks, Rodrigo. That means a lot coming from you." As Rodrigo walked away, Sophia realized she had made her decision. It was time to take the next step and expand her mission of change and respect. That evening, after discussing things with Julio Paredes and ensuring Elite Motors would be in good hands, Sophia called Gabriel. "I've made my decision," she said when he answered. "I accept the offer." Gabriel's voice carried the smile she could hear. "Excellent, Sophia. You won't regret it. How about we meet tomorrow to go over the details?" "Perfect," Sophia replied, feeling a mix of excitement and nervousness about what was to come. As she hung up the phone, Sophia looked out at the illuminated city and realized she was on the verge of a new chapter in her life, filled with both promise and challenge. Although she didn't know exactly what the future held, she was ready to face it with the same determination and empathy she had shown at Elite Motors. What she didn't know was that her decision would set off a chain of events that would not only transform her life and those around her, but also leave a lasting impact on the entire automotive industry. The journey she was about to embark on would be more thrilling, challenging, and rewarding than she could have ever imagined. As the night progressed, Sophia prepared to leap into the unknown, ready to tackle any challenges fate might throw her way. The changes she had begun at Elite Motors were just the start of something much larger. The following months were a whirlwind of activity for Sophia. Her new role as customer service ambassador for Vega Industries had her traveling across the country, visiting dealerships, and sharing her vision of a more human and respectful approach to the automotive business. At first, she faced resistance from some dealerships. Veteran salespeople and skeptical managers questioned the need to change their established methods. However, Sophia's determination and empathy, combined with the tangible results she could demonstrate from Elite Motors, slowly began to win them over. In São Paulo, Sophia faced a particularly skeptical group. The branch manager, Francisco Thompson, looked at her with barely concealed disdain. "Miss Nogueira," Francisco interrupted during her presentation. "All this sounds very nice, but we sell cars, not hugs. How do you expect us to maintain our sales numbers if we spend all day being kind to people who can't even afford our vehicles?" Sophia took a deep breath, recalling her early days at Elite Motors. "Mr. Thompson, I understand your concern, but let me ask you this. How many sales have you lost because a potential customer was treated dismissively based on their appearance?" Francisco frowned, clearly uncomfortable. Sophia continued, "At Elite Motors, we increased our sales by 30% in the first 6 months after implementing this program. Not only that, our customer satisfaction rates soared, leading to more referrals and repeat business." She locked eyes with Francisco. "This program isn't just about being nice. It's about building lasting relationships with customers, creating a reputation that attracts more people to your dealership. It's about seeing every person who walks through that door as a human being, not just a walking wallet." The ensuing silence was broken by a younger salesperson. "I think she's right," he said timidly. "Last week, a man in old clothes came in and we all ignored him. It turns out he was a local businessman looking to buy a fleet of vehicles for his company. We were so rude that he went to a competitor." Francisco paled at this revelation. Sophia seized the moment. "Gentlemen, please give me a chance. Let me implement this program for 3 months. If you don't see positive results, you can revert to your previous methods. What do you say?" Gradually, the faces in the room began to show signs of acceptance. Even Francisco, though still reluctant, nodded slowly. "All right, Miss Noguera, we'll try it your way." That night, exhausted but satisfied, Sophia called Gabriel to report her progress. "That's fantastic, Sophia," Gabriel exclaimed after hearing about her success in São Paulo. "I knew you could do it. You're changing the industry, one dealership at a time." Sophia smiled, feeling warmth in her chest from Gabriel's enthusiasm. "Thank you for believing in me, Gabriel. I couldn't have done it without your support." There was a pause on the line before Gabriel spoke again, his voice softer. "Sophia, I've been thinking. It's been months since we had dinner together. How about we meet when you're back in town? There's something important I'd like to discuss with you." Sophia's heart skipped a beat. "I'd love that, Gabriel. I'll be back next weekend." After hanging up, Sophia gazed out of her hotel room window, watching the city lights. She reflected on how much her journey had transformed her life and career. In a remarkably short time, Sophia had progressed from receptionist to spearheading a transformative movement across the industry, and now she faced a burgeoning connection with Gabriel. Her thoughts were interrupted by a notification on her phone. It was Rodrigo's message. "Sophia, you won't believe this. Elite Motors just won the Best Customer Service Award at the annual Automotive Industry Convention. All thanks to you. We miss you here, but we're incredibly proud of what you're achieving. Keep up the fantastic work." Tears filled Sophia's eyes. The message, a tangible reminder of her impact on both the business and its people. The ensuing days blurred with presentations, training sessions, and one-on-one talks with skeptical employees, but each day she saw the seeds of change taking root. When the day of her return arrived, she felt a mix of excitement and nervousness about her dinner with Gabriel. Preparing for the evening, Sophia paid extra attention to her appearance, choosing an elegant black dress and applying makeup, something she rarely did for business trips. At the restaurant, Gabriel greeted her with a warm smile and a kiss on the cheek, making her heart skip a beat. "Sophia," he said, "you look stunning." Sophia blushed and thanked him, commenting on his impressive appearance as well. After they were seated and their drinks served, Gabriel looked at her with a penetrating intensity. "Sophia," he began, "what you've achieved over these months is extraordinary. You've transformed dealerships and changed perceptions of customer service in our industry." He paused to sip his wine before continuing, "But that's not what I wanted to discuss tonight." Intrigued, Sophia listened as Gabriel shook his head. "Over these months working together and seeing your compassion and determination, I realized something." He leaned forward, taking her hand in his. "I've fallen in love with you." The world seemed to freeze as Sophia felt her heart race. "Gabriel, But before she could respond, Gabriel's phone rang urgently. He glanced at the screen, his face tense. "Sorry, I need to take this," he said, standing up. Sophia, still reeling from Gabriel's confession, watched as he answered the call, his expression shifting from worry to shock. When he returned, his face was ashen. "Sophia, there's been a major problem. Elite Motors is facing a scandal. Someone leaked information about our practices." Unmistakable blow to the stomach when Gabriel revealed the news. "What? How is that possible? We worked so hard to change things there," Sophia exclaimed. Gabriel shook his head, his expression grave. "I don't know, but this could destroy everything we've built, not just at Elite Motors, but at all the dealerships where your program was implemented." Sophia fell silent for a moment, processing the gravity of the situation. Then, with a resolve that even surprised Gabriel, she said, "We need to go back now. We need to find out what's happening and fix this." Gabriel nodded, a faint smile breaking through despite the seriousness of the moment. "That's the Sophia I know, always ready to face any challenge." As they hurried out of the restaurant, Sophia felt a mix of fear and confidence. Whatever lay ahead, they would tackle it together. At that moment, she realized she had also fallen for Gabriel. With hearts racing from the emotional whirlwind, Sophia and Gabriel drove into the unknown, prepared to fight for everything they had built and the future they were just beginning to envision. Dawn was barely breaking when they arrived at Elite Motors, the parking lot now crowded with media and onlookers who had caught wind of the scandal. "This is worse than I thought," Gabriel murmured, helping Sophia out of the car. At the dealership entrance, Julio Paredes awaited them, his face showing defeat. "Sophia, Gabriel, thank goodness you're here," he said, ushering them into his office and closing the door to shield them from the external chaos. Last night, someone leaked information to the press about alleged unethical practices at Elite Motors. Odometer tampering, hiding defects in used cars, even bribing inspectors. Sophia sank into a chair, stunned. "This is impossible. We worked so hard to change the culture here." Julio ran a hand through his graying hair. "I know, and I swear I had no idea this was happening." Gabriel, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "Do you have any idea who might have leaked this information?" Julio shook his head. "Whoever did had access to very detailed information. It has to be someone from inside." At that moment, a knock on the door interrupted the conversation. Rodrigo entered with a determined look. "Sorry to interrupt, but I think I know who's behind this," he said. The three looked at him, expectant. Rodrigo took a deep breath before continuing. "It's Alexandre. I overheard him on the phone last night bragging about how he had taken down Elite Motors." Sophia stood up abruptly. Sophia's heart raced. "Alexandre? But why would he do something like this?" she asked. Rodrigo explained, "I think he was resentful. He never really accepted the changes we made and complained about earning less commission under the new system." Gabriel frowned. "But that doesn't explain how he got details about practices that supposedly happened after we implemented the changes." A heavy silence fell as everyone processed this information. Finally, Sophia broke the silence. "Unless," she began, her mind working quickly, "unless these fraudulent practices never actually happened." Understanding dawned in everyone's eyes. "Of course," Julio exclaimed, "Alexandre might have fabricated these claims. He knows enough about the business to make them seem credible." Gabriel asked, "But why would he go this far?" Rodrigo lowered his gaze, embarrassed. "I think I know why. A few weeks ago, I overheard Alexandre talking to someone from Alto Luxo, our main competitor. I think they offered him a job if he could discredit Elite Motors." Sophia stood up, determination in her eyes. "We need evidence. If we can prove that Alexandre fabricated these claims, we can debunk the scandal." Gabriel nodded. "You're right. Rodrigo, do you think you could find any evidence on Alexandre's phone or computer?" Rodrigo agreed. "I can try. I know his password for the dealership system." "Do it," ordered Julio, "but be discreet. We don't want Alexandre to suspect anything." As Rodrigo left the office, Sophia turned to Gabriel. "We need a plan to stop this from spiraling out of control." Gabriel smiled, admiring Sophia's resolve. "You're right. We'll hold a press conference to show our transparency and commitment to ethics. That will give us some time while we gather evidence." The following hours were a whirlwind of activity. While Rodrigo searched for evidence, Sophia and Gabriel prepared a statement for the press. They reassured worried employees. Just before the press conference was scheduled, Rodrigo burst into the office, breathless but triumphant. "I found it," he said, holding up a flash drive. "Emails between Alexandre and Alto Luxo's manager, detailed plans to fabricate the scandal, even a promise of payment once Elite Motors fell." Sophia felt a weight lift from her shoulders. "You're a hero, Rodrigo." With the evidence in hand, Sophia and Gabriel faced the press. The conference was intense, with journalists firing aggressive questions. But Sophia, with her characteristic calm and honesty, managed the situation. Ladies and gentlemen, she began, we have discovered that the allegations against Elite Motors are completely false. They were fabricated by a disgruntled former employee in collusion with our competitor, demonstrating not only Elite Motors' innocence, but also the conspiracy behind these false accusations. We are turning all this information over to the appropriate authorities so they can take the necessary actions. Gabriel stepped forward. Additionally, we want to reaffirm our commitment to ethics and customer service. The program implemented by Miss Nogueira not only improved our business practices, but also transformed our company culture. We invite anyone interested to visit our facilities and see for themselves how we operate. Journalists' questions poured in, but Sophia and Gabriel handled them with skill, responding with clarity and conviction. By the end of the press conference, the media coverage had notably shifted. What began as a devastating scandal was turning into a story of integrity and resilience against unfair competition. Meanwhile, the police were notified and Alexandra was detained for questioning. The evidence was overwhelming and he soon confessed his role in the plot. In the following weeks, Elite Motors not only recovered from the scandal, but emerged stronger than ever. The transparency and integrity shown during the crisis attracted more customers, and sales surged to record levels. A month after the incident, Sophia was in her new office at Vega Industries headquarters. She had been promoted to Director of Corporate Culture and Customer Service, with the responsibility of implementing her program across all of the company's affiliated dealerships. As she reviewed some reports, a knock at the door made her look up. It was Gabriel. "Do you have a moment?" he asked with a smile. "For you, always," Sophia replied, feeling butterflies in her stomach, as she did whenever she saw him. Gabriel entered and closed the door behind him. "I've been thinking about our interrupted dinner," he said, approaching her desk. Sophia's heart raced. "I've been thinking about it a lot too," she admitted. Gabriel took her hands in his. "These past months have been a whirlwind. Scandals, challenges, changes, but through it all, my love for you has only grown. You are the most amazing person I've ever met. Your compassion, your determination, your integrity inspire me to be better every day." Sophia's eyes filled with tears. "Gabriel, Let me finish," he gently interrupted, kneeling in front of her and pulling out a small box from his pocket. "Sophia Nogueira, will you do me the honor of marrying me?" Sophia felt the world stop for a moment. With tears of joy streaming down her face, she nodded. "Yes, Gabriel. Yes, I will marry you." Gabriel slid the ring onto her finger and stood to kiss her. At that moment, everything they had been through, all the challenges and triumphs, seemed to have been the perfect path leading them to this moment. Days later at Elite Motors, Sophia and Gabriel gathered the entire staff to share not only their engagement news, but also the plans they had moving forward. "In the future of the company, thanks to all of you," Sophia said, "for believing in this vision of a business founded on respect and empathy. You've shown that it's possible to succeed without compromising our values." Gabriel added, "That's why we've decided to make Elite Motors the showcase of our new approach. We'll expand this dealership and turn it into a training center for all our branches." Applause and cheers filled the room. Rodrigo approached to congratulate the couple. "I can never thank you enough for the opportunity you gave me," he said. "You changed my life." Sophia hugged him. "You've changed ours too, Rodrigo. Everyone here is part of this transformation." As they looked around at the celebration, Sophia and Gabriel shared a look of love and complicity. They had faced incredible challenges, but together they not only overcame each obstacle, but also transformed an entire industry. The future stretched out before them, full of promises and new challenges, but with the love they shared and the support of those around them, they knew they could face whatever destiny had in store. As the sun set on another day at Elite Motors, Sophia reflected on the incredible journey that had taken her from a simple receptionist to the architect of a revolutionary change in the automotive industry. Her story was a testament to the power of kindness, integrity and perseverance. Holding Gabriel's hand, Sophia knew this wasn't the end of their story, but just the beginning of a new and exciting chapter.